surreal this has been.
We had no idea at the beginning of this project what it would evolve into.
What started as a trip to Paris to showcase Julie's original gypsy jazz album, The Mystery of Love, turned into a 2-year big band gypsy jazz rendezvous.
Culminating in a Parisian showcase involving world-class entertainers.
And a CD featuring Bireli Lagrene, Didier Lockwood, Jeff Hamilton, an all-star lineup of guest singers, and the Meza Big Band.
It was a mix of swing, it was a mix of gypsy music, a real kind of world music, jangle guitar, all of that stuff. So there was a spice to it that we hadn't had a chance to experience before, so for us it was just wonderful.
It's been an exhilarating journey making the Bohemian Dream Cabaret.
The Mystery of Love in Paris.
We've got the mystery of
Ever since I was a little girl, I've been drawn to the stage. I've loved to sing, dance, write songs, and produce shows. And when I discovered gypsy jazz, I became obsessed. I started writing in the style and putting together my Bohemian Dream Band to explore this exotic and energetic sound. The Mystery of Love songs I had actually written and performed with my band in Savannah, but recorded them in Nashville with the Gypsy Ombras and some other incredible players. In the summer of 2012, I crossed paths with composer and arranger William Austin Smith, whose exquisite film scores I had heard and very much admired. His music was so evocative and uplifting, and I was honored to give him a copy of my Mystery of Love album.
I just kept listening to the songs over and over. I was so impressed with the harmonic progressions and lyrics. I even once told Julie some of these songs would be great for big band. She just laughed.
I've been going back and forth to Paris for many years. As an artist, I've always felt a draw to this beautiful and romantic city, as if there's some unknown agenda waiting for me there that I'm not quite clear about. And magical things do seem to manifest every time I go. In the fall of 2012, I returned to Paris to put together a Parisian dream band to debut the songs from my Mystery of Love album.
I was in Los Angeles at the time, but Julie and I had been staying in touch. She seemed to be having so much fun performing with the Parisians, so when she offhandedly asked me to join her Parisian dream band, I booked a ticket.
After Austin got to Paris, we went about the enjoyable task of combing the city to find excellent gypsy jazz players for a Parisian Mystery of Love showcase at the Swan Bar Jazz Club.
We had fun putting that show together.
It was an easy, manageable size event. We just had 4 players and myself. And it didn't take too much time to prepare. We just had a few informal rehearsals.
It was such a pleasure to work with these French musicians. They were so warm and unpretentious, and yet professional and focused.
I just love the authentic flavor that these Parisian gypsy jazz guys brought to the music.
The Swan Bar turned out to be a pivotal place in the development of the big band project. Not only did we present the original Mystery of Love songs there, we met Meza there.
As soon as we met Ron, the ball was rolling. I think within the next couple of days, his big band was having a rehearsal, and Ron asked if Austin had any charts he'd like to bring for them to read. So Austin quickly put together an arrangement of my song, After Hours.
Suddenly, I'm standing in front of 18 seasoned musicians, and they're playing my arrangement. It was like a dream.
It was surreal. I couldn't believe I was sitting in this gorgeous red room at the Hector Berlioz School of Music, hearing this Parisian big band playing my tune. It was that feeling like, wow, there really is magic in life.
when all the world was closing its doors and had no
After we left Paris, Ron suggested that Austin send more charts. So Austin wrote new arrangements of other songs from my Mystery of Love collection. Ron's band would record them in their rehearsal and send us the tracks.
After hearing these recordings, we had this aha moment that this stuff sounds great. We have to make an album.
It all added up. We had this great relationship with Ron and the Gypsy Players.
We should remake The Mystery of Love.
In Paris, we knew that this was going to be a very ambitious project and that financially we were going to need some support. So we looked to crowdsourcing, to Indiegogo, to help us make that first step so that the project would be possible.
We had help from so many people in so many ways.
We even collaborated with a videographer and some enthusiastic dancers in Paris who helped us get footage that we incorporated into a music video.
It was a lot of fun running the Indiegogo campaign. It was frustrating, but there was so much creative energy flowing as we produced all this material.
Of course, we had to take off on the Moulin Rouge theme.
Yeah, we had some silly gimmicks for sure. By the end of the Indiegogo campaign, I had the charts almost finished, but I needed a way to hear these arrangements, to test them in the field before we got to the studio.
We were so fortunate to have Cameron McManus put together a big band in North Carolina to do a reading session of the songs.
This was a critical step in the development of the arrangements, and quite an honor. Once we had the big band arrangements in shape, we had to figure out how best to incorporate the gypsy jazz instruments.
For help with this, we turned to some of Savannah's gypsy musicians, including virtuoso Ricardo Ochoa, who played violin on my original Mystery of Love album.
From the very beginning of this project, Julie was adamant about staying true to the gypsy jazz influence. While I was all too happy to fall back on familiar American big band arranging principles, it was Julie who made sure that the accordion, violin, and gypsy guitar had a prominent presence in the arrangements. It was these jazz minutiae elements that ultimately made the music seductive, French, romantic, exotic, and passionate. With these rough mixes, we felt confident we were ready to set a date to record. We looked to Ron to help us find the right studio in Paris.
The most prestigious studio in Paris, a studio called Davout. Miles Davis recorded there. It's the absolutely most fantastic studio in Paris. And you know what? It's the only place that I could think of that this project could be recorded at.
When we got back to Paris, we worked nonstop to get ready for the recording session in December. I was even still finishing the lyrics for a new song for the album.
We had our first rehearsals with the Gypsy Players in our apartment. I was so inspired by what these guys brought to the music, I actually added some featured solos to the charts.
Our French was so limited, and we had occasional language barriers, but when the charts were in front of these guys, we were all speaking the same language.
Yeah, when you're writing for a big band, you have to have a lot of music.
And a lot of tape and space to put it together.
Oh, what a beautiful mess.
What a production.
We had very little time to rehearse with the big band at Gypsy Jazz Players all together. It was extremely intense at the rehearsals because that limited time was so valuable. It was extremely productive, being able to get these musicians familiar with the music ahead of time, going ahead and hitting those problems, tempo problems, differences in interpretation. It takes a lot to record a big band album. Just the process of getting 20 musicians to sound perfect together. It's a challenge, and everybody's putting out so much effort to achieve high-quality musicianship. They have to play this music together many times just to hear the interpretation of the other players and meld that sound and agree on how it should be played.
I love the Red Room. The Red Room made the experience so alive and so Parisian for me. It was so striking and exciting. Energy was just bouncing off the walls. While I was listening, I was looking out the window at the white shuttered buildings next door and thinking how far we'd come since the last time we were in that room, and how connected I felt to these Parisian musicians. I felt like I had come back home.
Paris is a powerful place, a muse to countless artists. While we were there, Julie and I were inspired to collaborate on a new song for the album, based on the Pont des Arts, the Lover's Bridge, where couples come from all over the world to place a lock as a symbol of their eternal devotion.
Just 2 weeks before the recording session, I was still obsessing over the lyrics to the chorus. So I went back to the bridge and observed all the lovers and read the beautiful and heartfelt inscriptions on the locks, hoping for some inspiration that would help me finish the song. Another new song for the album that was inspired by our experiences in Paris was an instrumental that Austin wrote after our first visit to Versailles in 2012.
Even though we were there in winter, the majesty of the gardens had the most profound impact on me. As I walked the labyrinth of lanes lined with hawthorn trees, I imagined how the royal inhabitants of this estate must have experienced these magical grounds. Musically, I wanted to create a mood of capricious lovers meeting for a romantic rendezvous in the gardens.
One of my favorite things about Paris is that there's live music everywhere you go, and it's being performed by really great musicians. You can hear it just going about your everyday life. It's in the metro stations, on the trains, and in the streets. I've always been intrigued and enthralled by the street musicians of Paris. So it was a dream come true for me to be able to do a little busking and sing with several amazing street bands.
Yeah, and in fact, that's how we discovered the clarinetist who ended up recording on the album with us just a few weeks later. We were up before the sun came up. Every possible thing that could derail the whole day enters your mind. A lot of downtime. Lots of time spent just testing mics. Just making sure that everyone's headphone works. You could spend half a day just taking care of that technical stuff before you even start to record.
But we didn't have that luxury of time. We had 10 songs to record in 12 hours.
The studio engineers were probably up earlier than us. So glad that the studio had as many isolation booths as it had. We were able to have all the horns together, and every other instrument gets their own isolation booth, so that when you're mixing, you can just hear that instrument showing up on the track.
So there's my setup in my little room where I was singing scratch vocals. You can see that Austin was kind enough to set up a little video screen of what was happening in the main recording studio. So I was able to connect while I was singing scratch vocals. Austin was in his element in the Davoo studio. He was thoroughly engaged, playing multiple roles. He was conducting, he was listening with an engineer's ear, and playing the trombone on some tracks.
It was a long day in the studio, but we accomplished everything we set out to do.
Christmas in Paris, it was heavenly, and especially while working on a project of passion. It really was a sublime coming together of being in the perfect place, doing the perfect thing.
Just when we thought we were finished recording in Paris, we had a brainstorm. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could get the greatest gypsy guitar player in the world to solo on the album?
So we contacted Bireli Lagrene's agent, and he requested that we send him the tracks. So as it turned out, we were thrilled that Bireli was interested in recording with us.
Suddenly, we found ourselves just a few days from flying back to America, and we had one more recording session coming up with the world-famous Bireli Lagrene.
Oh, that was the perfect day in the studio because we were also fortunate enough to bring in the great French violinist Didier Lockwood. What a brilliant musician.
Working with these two musicians was out of this world. They were extremely professional, very kind. In fact, I think when the clock ran out at the end of Didier's session, he said, "No, don't worry, let's finish."
Didier Lockwood and Bireli Lagrene were not only outstanding musicians, but they were delightful to work with, professional, focused, just magical. When we left Paris, we had everything we needed for a great album. We had the tracks of all these wonderful musicians, the arrangements, but the real work had actually just begun. I don't think we realized at that time just how many hours were ahead of us in mixing and adding overdubs and the evolution that was still to take place.
One of the first things we did when we got back to the States was to hire world-renowned big band jazz drummer Jeff Hamilton.
The way we recorded Jeff Hamilton was very interesting. Austin hired an associate of his in LA who has a studio to set up the session with Jeff via a live feed. So we were able to communicate with Jeff and be a part of the session long distance, sitting from our living room.
Recording Jeff long distance opened our eyes to the ease with which we could record musicians all over the world.
And I had always wanted to have guest vocalists on the album. Through the years, there have been so many singers that I've admired and followed across the United States and France, and by recording long distance, I was tickled to be able to share the stage with them on this album.
No safety net, no parasol, while ambulating above the falls. We're doing after hours. I love you, baby, with wide open eyes. I love everything I see. There's nothing to disguise. When it's over, and moreover, there's just no getting it back. On the Pont des Arts, lovers lock their hearts, pledge their love together for all eternity. Where feathers float in a glitter spot, and rouge is the color of light in a Bohemian dream.
After compiling all these golden vocals and instrumental overdubs, Julie and I still had months of intense listening and refining ahead of us.
In the spring of 2014, we got a call from Paris with a special invitation to present the Bohemian Dream Cabaret music live at La Petite Journal. We immediately started the PR campaign and designing the posters for the show.
With Julie's extensive experience staging theatrical productions, I felt confident we could do this thing. We were ready to go back to Paris, especially Julie, who was always moving a project forward, constantly pushing the creative boundaries.
When we realized we were going to be doing a show in Paris, I wanted to do it right. I wanted it to be a real cabaret show. I wanted to have dancers and an MC, lights and music and humor. We had to figure out how to include all of these elements, and yet we only had several weeks to put it together.
Serendipitously, there was an international swing and tango festival going on at the time, where we found some phenomenal dancers for the show.
We also brought in a dazzling world-class burlesque dancer from London. For the role of Master of Ceremonies, Patty Sherlock, a charismatic musician and showman, was the obvious choice. Patty was one of the first entertainers that I met in Paris, and I am a great fan of his stage work.
Ladies and gentlemen, Monsieur, Madame, bonsoir et bienvenue. Welcome to the Bohemian Dream Cabaret.
Waste no time on divinity. Just be glad that it brought you to me. The mystery of love. The mystery of love. We got love, we got love, the mystery. We got love, mystery of love. We're wide awake, it's our time to play. When to and after us. It's 2 a.m., my phone is on. For late night antics, darling, you're known. For taking chances, my heart is prone. Can't slip up and fall in love. No safety net, no parasol. Fun emulating above the falls. Like Miss Madigan, risking it all. If I slip up and fall in love.
Elle travaille, mais la nuit, elle rêve. Elle s'ennuie pas. Elle rêve d'être danseuse. She dreams of being a beautiful dancer at the Moulin Rouge.
Lucy's alive in the nocturnal vibe, in a rendezvous with the moon. But there are signs that plainly show when love is history. There's no compromising in love's demising, and there's just no getting it back. No getting it back.
We completed the final version of the Bohemian Dream Cabaret, The Mystery of Love in Paris CD in the summer of 2015.
The cover art that we designed around a gorgeous mosaic by Dinello was the final element that brought it all together.
From the very beginning of this project, every step has been an unexpected discovery.
An exhilarating and wondrous unfolding.
And we can't wait to see what comes next. for the Bohemian Dream Cabaret.